I'm back up here again. If you weren't in the room earlier, my name is George Ironstrack, and hopefully this is about the extent of my talking for this. I think it's rather fitting that we're going to end today with Myaamia students, both graduates and current students, because it's really all about us. But I think in all seriousness, Chief Leonard was a big fan of the beginning of the Heritage Award, and he constantly described education as the seminal key benefit the tribe could help its young people achieve, and that would take care of a lot of other things in and of itself. And we've come to see the realization of a lot of that vision. And that stretches all the way back, at least for me, back in the historical record for a long time. The key example is right after forced removal in 1846. It's one of the first things the leaders of the nation asked for when they sat down to write the president, is education for their kids. But they said but, and they added a key but. But we want it done close to us so we can control how they're being educated, so that they're not taken from us. So in 1846, they knew how they needed to have some level of control over the education of their children. It's not as though they didn't recognize there were skills and knowledge that existed outside their people that their children needed to learn, but they didn't think that you had to learn those things and give up being a part of the community. And it's been my experience working with Myaamia students here at Myaamia University that is one of the great things that we're seeing happen. So people are learning, but they're not necessarily learning that they have to then leave the community once they have that knowledge. I have a series of questions that I'm going to be asking everyone, and I'd like to then open it up to a conversation after that. We have a lot of other Myaamia graduates and a lot of other contemporary current Myaamia students in the audience, and a lot of other Myaamia families and other interested parties, so I want to make sure we leave a lot of time for discussion, just like during the faculty question and answer. And I'll ask each graduate to introduce themselves, and we'll just start out with one question, and then we'll come down the line in rank of seniority, which you may know in Myaamia culture, that is a mark of esteem, not a mark of your, end date or something. So we'll start on the end with Rachel Eikenberry, Eikenberry, who is the first time I've met Rachel, but she's one of the trailblazers. She's the first of 3 students to come here on the Heritage Award. And the first question I'm going to ask the whole group to answer is, what has been the impact, both short-term and long-term, of attending Myaamia University?
Thank you. As he said, my name is Rachel Eikenberry, and this story goes back quite a ways. I was a senior and graduating from the University of Notre Dame and did not know what to do next. And my parents had always gone to the annual meeting. My family lives in Iowa. And they had gone to the annual meetings in Oklahoma. And it was something that was important to them, but it really hadn't passed down to be important to my generation, the 5 of us kids. So it was something almost trivial about our family background. So while I knew I was Miami, I don't think I truly was Miami yet. And Chief Leonard had told my father about this opportunity and said, you should tell Rachel about this. There's this thing that kind of exists. She could do this, but no one's done it before. So fortunately, there was a program here, a graduate program called School Psychology. And as I was a psychology major, there really aren't a lot of jobs you can get. You need to continue your education. And I enrolled in the program just like everybody else. You have to qualify. Just because you're Miami doesn't mean that you get in. So there are very high standards. And as Daryl spoke about last night, the trend tends to be just do it first and we'll write about it later. And that was the case very much. I was welcomed to the university, but no one had done it before. We weren't sure really what that meant. And so to answer the question, how did it affect my life? Professionally, it gave me a job. It gave me a passion. I continue to serve as a school psychologist back in Iowa today. So I'm very grateful to the university for the experience. The education at Miami is top-notch. Make no mistake about it, Miami prepares you well for life, and no matter what way you go. Secondly, personally, I met my husband here, so I couldn't imagine life without Miami. We are what they call a Miami merger, and he is my best friend. So we have raised 3 children, and it has been a wonderful opportunity to do that. I have brought my daughter, Allison. Allison, will you stand so they can see who you are? So Allison is in the 7th grade, and maybe she'll be the 2nd generation of our family to come here. And finally, on a cultural level, how it has affected my life. I think, like I alluded to before, it was somewhat of a trivial concept, but now it is a central element to who I am as a person, as a school psychologist. I take the role of culture very seriously, not just Native cultures, but all students of any color, any culture, and make sure that they feel welcome to grow in their own culture and feel accepted in a school environment. And I hope that my children will continue on our legacy of learning more. I cannot even tell you, sitting in that chair today, just the things, the ideas that have evolved in really just 20 years. I don't think any of us can imagine what the next 20 years could be like.
Well, you're tough to follow, Rich. So happy that you have a cheat sheet here for me to look at. Thanks. It's a question asking about the impact on me associated with attending Miami. And I want to clarify right away that for me, attending entails more than one thing. So of course, I grew up primarily in Oxford, 1983. Previously, we lived in Arkansas and in Missouri. And I started taking classes here in 1992 when I was in high school, and then became an undergraduate in 94, graduated in 98, and of course have been very heavily involved, some years more than others, in Myaamia Project related research and program development in the early 2000s. And as I said this morning, presented several Myaamiaki conferences, and today was the 4th. And so all of those experiences have affected me greatly. It wasn't just the 4 years as an undergraduate, although arguably that was the single biggest thing. So now I'm a linguist who specializes in Miami language reclamation. Where might that have come from? As I've told a lot of people, a number of things fell into place at just the right time. I was a linguistics major. It was in the mid-90s. It was at this time that Myaamia language reclamation was really getting underway at the tribal level in the Miami tribe of Oklahoma. It had already been underway somewhat in the Miami Nation of Indiana and in individual families, but this was a tribal venture. It was my grandfather's, the late Chief Leonard, so I was very heavily involved in tribal affairs through that family connection. And I was getting into linguistics. These tribal language efforts were getting underway, and things basically fell into place for me. My interests were developing at the right time, and that's how I came to pursue the profession that I have today as a linguist who specializes in the reclamation of indigenous languages. So that impact is huge. And of course, my education here as an undergraduate linguistics major was a significant part of that then facilitated my graduate study at Berkeley. But another area that's impacted me greatly is in the whole notion of the Myaamia Project, the ways in which it's developed, that idea of collaboration, the idea of something being influenced by the needs and the expertise of various parties, of the various stakeholders involved. That's also something that I was participating in and witnessing, and it became the topic of a number of discussions that I had the opportunity to be involved in. And that's greatly influenced me professionally, in that this has become a model that I've advocated for in the various other institutions I've been a part of, and I've taught at 5 places now. And also it's become a research interest, in that I have a couple of conference presentations and one academic paper that's specifically about that topic, that notion of collaboration and the various ways in which it can occur. And so I could go on and talk about other personal impacts, but those are some of the major ones. I'm going to pass the mic on.
Hello, I'm Tina. I'm a current junior, an education major for earth science and chemistry. And I have to say, I had very little exposure to any sort of language or culture. I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana, so my family just wasn't really connected to anything. But coming here, I've learned a lot about the history, the culture, the language. Brad and I here, we sit in the office every week and learn 2 new nouns and a verb every week. But it's just been great to really connect, and it's really shaped my identity. Before, I was kind of lost coming out of high school, but now I have a better understanding of who I am, where I want to go, my goals. I'm sitting in my education classes and I'm like, how can I incorporate this? And actually, to McCoy's Earth and Sky curriculum, I'm like, and when I'm sitting through my astronomy class, I'm like, how can I use this? Because this is really cool. But I can't imagine going on and teaching without incorporating something that I've learned here. But there's so many opportunities just from my Miami education. I get to go to stomp dances here, and all of my teachers are like, yes, go, it's really cool. I went several years ago. And I can't imagine not sitting in the Myaamia Project office. I currently work there, and I'm just like, what am I going to do? I'm so used to just being surrounded by these people and learning something new every day. So it'll be interesting, and I really look forward to taking that little bit of me and moving forward, and as well as giving back.
Hi, sorry about my voice. I haven't been sick all year, and when I have to speak in front of people, I get sick. So I kind of have a weird story because I didn't come into Miami involved with the Myaamia Project. I had no idea it existed. And the year I came in, 2008, was the big art museum exhibit. So I'm walking around. I mean, I knew I was Miami. I knew some history, my heritage and stuff like that. So I'm walking around and I'm kind of pointing at all my friends like, oh yeah, you know, I'm related to this guy. That's pretty cool. It's neat that they're doing all this stuff. I kind of I walked by a video of like Daryl teaching people because they had like a continuous video going on. Didn't think anything of it. And like the next year, I was in another class and we started talking about language reclamation. Read your article. And so I was like, okay, I need to do this. I need to find out what's going on. So I walk into the office and I say hi to George, and I'm like, oh hi, I'm Miami. He's like, okay. I'm a sophomore, and I look and there's a picture of Gabriel Godfroy, and I say, I think I'm related to him. And he's like, oh, you are Miami. Okay. He knew that like something was going on. So I was able to, after a year of kind of figuring out how I can get involved, because I didn't start up right away with the Heritage Award. There's problems with that. I finally got involved, and it was really a fantastic experience because I'm a geography and anthropology major, and obviously those are intertwined with kind of Native American studies, environmental science, all things like that we teach and we learn at the Myaamia Project. So it's been a really great way to take my academic interests and turn it into personal interest, because I've had a job this past year doing historical mapping where I'm taking historical sites, putting it on modern political maps for tribal government to use. And that's, every single day I'm learning something about either the Miami tribe, tribal relations with the government, and I mean, every day I'm walking in and I ask George a question, and then we're learning something, you know, I would have never learned otherwise. So it's a really great opportunity to know where my family's come from, and I'm very happy I got involved, and I'm definitely better off because of this whole project, and of course Goldman Prize. And again, that was another chance thing where I happened to go to Oklahoma. I met Jason and Jonathan and their whole families, and they said, "Oh, you should do this class." I was like, "Yeah, okay, I don't really want to go to school in the summer, but whatever." And I did it, and it was like the best experience I've had here, next to the whole Myaamia Project. And what's this article? Yeah. And so yeah, and it just immediately I was like, I need to do something about this. This combines pretty much everything about me, my interests, academic, personal, everything, and the friends I've made. It's been a great experience.
Nail it. I think everyone up here has just shared a wonderful cross-section of experiences. I don't have anything to add to that, so maybe move to the next question, and it's more of a challenging one. I think, speaking as a student here, I think we all recognize when we come in or when we begin to participate in Myaamia events on campus or participate in the Myaamia educational process here, that comes with certain kinds of challenges, and it's different for every person. But I'm curious if you'd be willing to share what were some of the challenges of coming here as a Myaamia person, and maybe how you dealt with those challenges or how you think others could in the future.
One obvious challenge for me was I am a 6-foot-tall woman that doesn't have the face of what Native Americans look like. And here I was becoming the first poster child, if you will, to try out this new idea of furthering our education. And Chief Leonard, very early on in my journey here, said, "Get rid of that thinking. That's not right. You are Myaami." So with that, that's all I needed. With his guidance, I recall one of the letters he wrote in the tribal newsletter, one of the last ones he wrote, said something to the effect that when we look in the mirror, we all look different. We may have different color hair, different eyes, different skin, but we are all one. And through his leadership and mentoring, quite frankly, he helped me feel more comfortable in the role. When I was here from 91 to 94, one of the big issues on campus was the mascot that was used by the university, and it was Redskins. And it was a big controversy about how does that reflect this relationship. It just didn't feel right. But many people through the university about sports, they felt strongly that why change? It's worked for all these years. So if I had to answer that question very succinctly, George, it would be the mascot issue too. And I was asked to sit on a committee to address that, and I would just go back to Chief Leonard and say, "You tell me what to say." And he was a very humble man that knew how to compromise. And I think we came upon a good decision to change the name to Red Hawks.
Well, Rich, I'm going to echo your comments. I think this is probably not surprising because my time here was partially overlapping with yours and then immediately thereafter. Overwhelmingly, being a Myaamia person on campus in the 90s was a positive thing. There were a few other Myaamia people, and I remember us getting together at various times to prepare programs, education about our tribe for the larger university community. I remember one night, I think it was maybe midnight, 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., we were in my room in Clawson Hall. Kimberly Wade was there, and Anika Jennings, she was at the time. She has a different name now. And that was very, very empowering. However, there was the flip side to that, which is that 1, I got overextended, 2, I got asked to be on everything, and then 3, there was that nasty ongoing controversy regarding the university mascot. And I kept being put into this position where I was somehow able to be, or supposed to speak on behalf of the tribe as a whole, which of course I can't do. I just give my own opinion. And so that did get a little bit annoying. It got annoying. Some people were genuinely interested, and that part was good. Remember there was a young man who was involved in the Western College program, the School of Interdisciplinary Studies, and he wanted to interview me, and he had really good questions to ask. He really wanted to understand various historical issues and contemporary issues. But I did feel like others sometimes just wanted a soundbite answer, and that got annoying.
based mini challenges, because a lot of my friends are like, oh wow, that's really cool, and then change the subject. But I think one of the hardest times I had was last year. There was a flare-up about the mascot, and it was really tough. Like, a lot of us were really worked up, and we actually had a meeting in the Myaamia Project office. We were like, what do we do? How do we handle this? And just like having the support to really sit down and say, this is what I'm feeling. What can I do about it? How do I handle this? Who can I go to? Made it a lot easier. And I feel like I can handle that question better on my own just from that alone.
Yeah, similar to Tina, I haven't had much opposition. Most of my friends are in social sciences, so they're kind of privy to, I guess, different cultures, different social issues. Yeah, I guess really for me, it's just that kind of question that pops up every once in a while. You know, oh, do you go here for free? That kind of thing. And then I say, no, I paid for 2 years here. So I don't have that thing. But no, you know, I just kind of say, I mean, look at the whole situation. Do you really think that my relatives would, you know, my ancestors would have made this agreement, you know, if they had the power to do that? And the answer is obviously no. They'd have rather stayed, you know, where they were instead of the current situation. So that's and that's something that it's never angry. It's just kind of something they know. They're like, oh, you know, I think there's an award, and it's never an accusation or any animosity with it. So I think, I mean, I don't want to say it's true for all of us, but at least I feel like in our age group, there hasn't been many issues.
All right, I think I'd like to open the floor to questions and or comments from the floor. Maybe before we do that, just have all Myaamia graduates and our current Myaamia students hold up your hands, because I'm sure this conversation is going to run over, and I want to give everyone the opportunity to see who's out there. And afterwards or at tonight's events, be sure to come up and talk to them about their experiences. They all have different stories to tell. As Wes very insightfully said, no one can tell one story because there isn't one. There's a bunch of different ones. So take the opportunity to talk to all the different students here. So with that, I'll open the floor to someone have a story they want to tell about being a Myaamia student here, or does someone have a question for Myaamia students? Yeah.
I have a question about identity. I assume that most of you are of mixed heritage, and I'm wondering how do you balance, or how do you choose which group to identify with, and what processes have you gone through to do that? How do you balance the fact that you are of mixed ancestry?
I don't want to monopolize, but if the other three are going to defer. Well, you may have noticed that I deal with a lot of things, or address a lot of things through academic research. It's sort of who I am. And this example is no different. This is actually an area of current research for me, one that has involved a lot of introspection, but has also looked at a lot of the issues that are out there. Because indeed the norm for Myaamia people is for us to have other heritages as well, and for those various other heritages to affect our daily practices, our beliefs, and so on. So in my particular case, my mother is Japanese, and I grew up going to Saturday Japanese school. I used to live in Japan. I speak Japanese. I teach Japanese society in addition to Native American studies. And when I was here at Myaamia University, I was president of the Japanese Culture and Language Club. And so that's a very extreme and obvious example, partly because that other heritage in this case is not mainstream society, if you will, rather it's marked, it stands out, and so one might be forced to think about it a little bit more. I have a concern sometimes, which is that we have that are defined as Myaamia or Japanese or whatever, and sometimes I worry that people will feel pressure to be only that thing. And that's very, very problematic because that's not the reality. They come from multiple communities of practice, multiple heritages, and it makes sense that any given person's beliefs and practices are not going to be solely defined by one thing. Rather, they're going to be a mixture. And so I've tried to put forth the idea that all of us are 100% Myaamia, and we're also 100% members of the various other communities that we belong to. And that it's a good thing, that we're going to draw from all of those things. And it makes sense then that we might have what sociologists sometimes call a master identity in a given context where one of those might stand out more than others. And then furthermore, I'd like to point out to people that the Myaamia community thrives today because of our diversity. It's because we're all Myaamia and have certain things in common, but have different interests and come from different places and speak different languages and so on. It's because of that that our tribe is able to flourish. So we're able to address all of these various things that happen in the wider world. And so in short, or in summary, how I deal with that sort of thing is one, to recognize that it's there, and then two, to embrace it, and to legitimize it as something that empowers the Myaamia people who are also members of other communities, rather than inhibits us or makes us somehow, if you will, only part Myaamia and only part something else. I just want to.
I'll add to that from a teaching and historical perspective that when I compare the United States to other countries, multilingualism is the norm other places, as is multiculturalism. For me, those overlap almost perfectly. And in the United States, there's the very strong imposed idea that monolingualism and monoculturalism is the norm. But for Myaamia people, for all of our existence, that has not been true. And so that continues to not be true today for all of us. Other questions? Chief, you had your hand up.
Early on when I came to tribal politics and worked with the tribe, I had a conversation with then Chief Dawes and Ottawa and Chief Leonard of Miami, you all know. And they pointed out that at that point in being Native American, that they could be a professional and do good in their profession, but they could also participate in cultural events and be their respective tribes. And before that point, I think that there was a stigma or a thought that you would have to probably not be proud of your Native American your heritage because it wasn't going to get you anywhere. And I think that us in Oklahoma, we've heard that from our folks and stuff like that. So what my question would be is they felt that they could blend culture, heritage, and professionalism. And how about the students as you leave Miami University and go on to life? Will it be something that you do past the experience theory that you have with your education in the Myaamia Project?
I have to say that a lot of the stuff that we're learning in Heritage class and that I've taken from being a counselor at Iwanzaka and everything, it really melds well with everything I'm learning in my education classes. So I feel like just it's being integrated in other ways, and it won't be difficult for me or unheard of for me. Actually, my education professors are like, do it. You need to teach who you are. You can't be ingenuine. Your students will come up with that, or will realize that, and they will tear you apart. So it's like, so it's been really easy and encouraged. Just everybody at the university, like, you need to be who you are. So I try really hard to just be who I am and integrate it. And I really want to find ways to bring it to the classroom. So if you have any ideas, please come find me, because I really want to do it.
Yeah, so for me, my focuses, I guess, are like environmental science, and kind of the blending of social issues, like you can say, environmental justice. So these things are obviously integral to many different groups of people in the world. and many different groups of people in America. So to take the knowledge I've gained, not only then could I turn around and help the tribe again, but then I could also know the process of learning other people, of learning different cultures, and kind of facilitating that for the best possible result for any other kind of project I work on. So it's definitely useful to get this perspective, not only for my own personal well-being, but I think the kind of knowledge of developing this knowledge will be very useful in the future.
Chief Gamble, that was a great question, I think. I think once you step foot here at Miami as a Myaamiite, you can't take it away. I mean, and it is a great question that I struggle with. How do you give back? And the service learning at Miami seems to be providing a pathway to make that more practical and realistic. From my own perspective, since my brief visit here, one thing that I want to say publicly for all my fellow alumni is we're thinking of ways to get an alumni group, a subgroup started of Myaamia alumni, so that the idea might be for any tribal event that we would have a presence there, and we would be a group, and an identifiable group where social media, whatnot, that we will be a presence. And with our diversity and our sense of community, I can't even imagine what the end result of that will be.
Chief Campbell, I also thought that was a great question, and probably it's also one that I write about in research. Because it's a prominent issue. Are you an author or are you a Native American author? Are you a linguist or are you an African American linguist? There are norms associated with certain professions, usually where somebody has to be a member of the unmarked group, the one that's the default, the one that doesn't stand out, the one that doesn't need explaining. And in conjunction with this, there's a general ideology out there that Native Americans fail. That we are not really able to do things. That if we are in a given profession and we're excelling in that profession, then we're not really Native. Because we gave up something because Native people really aren't that way. And so what I try to do is to set an example that shows how incorrect that is. Because, well, I am a linguist. I am Myaamia. Try to do well in both. The two are not incompatible. And so yes, I see two strategies. One is to try to set a positive example, and two is to very openly talk about that issue and point out the strange thinking that made it into an issue in the first place.
I do believe that they're unplugging my microphone. I think all the graduates have been roughly identified to you, and all the current students too, and many of us will be around at dinner and at the concert tonight. So feel free to ask for stories from everyone. I think you'll find most Myaamia students love to talk about their time here, so they'll be very generous with you. Mission anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Daryl. You want to say some closing words, Nika?